It is November 3rd, 2022. Let's talk about the Everton family, those that founded Bachelors Grove Cemetery. Some of the original names for the cemetery, though, were Smith's Cemetery, which I've yet to really dig deep into, factually anyway, why they were calling it that. And then there's the Everton Cemetery, and then eventually it became Bachelors Grove Cemetery, which again is still like, even though it's our common name today, how did it really occur? You know, the history of it gets a little murky, but let's go to things that are a little bit more solid. Land purchase records that go back to around 1835. So this is going to be, for those of you learning these maps, you'll have a lot of fun when you're walking the woods. So when you come across maps, look for things for Township 36 North, Range 13 East of the 3rd Principal Meridian. And you're going to be in Section 8. In Section 8, the boundaries are pretty much on the north side, 143rd Street, south side, 151st Street. To the east is Central Avenue, and to the west is Ridgeland Avenue. Now, if you look at the property records of where Bachelors Grove Cemetery is currently on, not that it's supposed to be disappearing anytime soon. So we have the wife, Corintha. In the purchase records, it says Everton. We have a lot of misspellings when you look into this stuff, so when you're doing your research, you know, don't totally overlook it. And then we got Samuel Everton, or actually Everdon, the D. I want to make this thing a little constructive here so you can actually learn on maps. If it bores you, so be it, but some people do ask. So in Section 8, we'll start at the northwest corner, Daniel Sawtell. And if you go a little bit south, it's also Daniel Sawtell. Now those two blocks should be 80 acres each. And then where Bachelors Grove Cemetery is on the north end, so Everton, Corintha. And that should be 80 acres. And then you go down south to Everton in the actual map, Samuel Everton, another 80 acres. And then there's another section here, Thomas McClintock. Again, that spelling is a little off. He's got two sections, 80 acres each. Then a little south of that is Jones William, one big block, totaling two other 80-acre blocks here. It's not like a thorough thing, but just to give you an idea of the size and acreage. Part of this is also so you can backtrack. What's the deal with this Everton family? Where do they go? That kind of thing. I'm not going to get into where they went because that's still an ongoing process. But if you look at things like the when you're roaming the woods and you want to learn about things who originally anyway owned the property, things like the State of Illinois Archive Division, Public Domain, Sales, Land Tract Record Listing, and some libraries have this stuff. Apparently it's dated of 1983. But in the record, so Corintha, Everton, the east half of the northwest section. That's where you kind of like got to read these maps backwards when you're deciphering some of these blocks, the legal descriptions. Like if you went to the history page that Brad Bettenhausen had written, it gives the legal description of the cemetery. Of course, it spins your brain like, what the hell does all this mean? But if you get into these maps, it can get kind of fun. They purchased, let's see, Corintha purchased 80 acres at $1.25 an acre on June 26th, 1835. And then Samuel Everton, east half of the southwest section, 80 acres, $1.25 an acre on the same date, June 26, 1835. Obviously, I'll be popping up some pictures of this kind of stuff so you can get an idea of what these records look like. I'm only focusing on certain sections of this. If you go west of the cemetery across the creek, you find those couple house foundations. The oldest one is on the northern portion of the old Midlothian Turnpike, if you can identify the turnpike when you're there. Daniel Sawtell had the west half of the northwest section. Originally in here, it's at 40 acres in this record. So yeah, he had 240 acres. $1.25 an acre on the same date of June 26th, 1835. His other section, west half of the southwest section, $1.25 an acre at 40 acres, same date. June 26, 1835. So when you're out there and you're wondering, because the north section on that north side of the road, the reason I mention that is because you'll notice it's, if you go digging around, it is like the oldest residence right there. Now, if you bought the property later on, you probably utilized the same section where the house was and you used that house. Whether you tore it down, reconstructed or not, that's typically what I find is that they're using that same section. And then south of the road, much bigger chunk. It's got a silo foundation, things like that, the old cistern. I even found more modern material like those big, huge thermometers that used to hang on gas stations back in the day. They're very sought after. They're good condition. But some of that is more modern material. The more, so it said 40 acres, 40. I don't know, something doesn't seem right with this map when I'm reading it, because I said Daniel Sawtell 80 and another 80 acre thing, but it says 40 in there. I'll have to dig around. But I'm just giving some background information on this kind of stuff. Some of these records, sometimes you got to go get the missing pieces of the puzzle elsewhere through later dates or whatever. But the map I'm actually going off of comes from Family Maps of Cook County, Illinois. So that's an awesome book to have. If you can't afford it, if it's no longer for sale, it is in libraries. But let's focus on the Everdons. Now, most of us have been through a whole bunch of stuff in the woods with the Everdons as far as the cemetery is concerned. If you go south of the cemetery, you see that open field. It has a gravel parking lot that's never locked up. But if you go across the street, 147th, you'll see Gaelic Park and things like that. And there's actually a home across the street actually from that gravel lot. Now, I'm highly suspicious. Do not trespass on this property. It is private property, so don't annoy them. I believe that that's going to be the original area where Samuel Everton probably had a home. But I would like to dig into it some more. However, if you go even further south to 151st Street, there is a section of woods by like a school and a subdivision. And if you walk in there, it looks like we're looking at remnants of things, possibly even from when Samuel Everton was there. However, there is other things that are clearly not his. Like there was a tank found. It looks like a septic tank of some kind. It has Underwriter Laboratories certification, things like that. Hopefully we don't get too interrupted by the planes and the wind. Where was I? Oh, the tank. So obviously in the 1800s they were using an outhouse, not a septic tank, if that's what it is. But you can see it, the tank was meant to be buried. It's interesting stuff. If you walk back there, see some remnants of things. You can tell that it was also used as a dumping ground later on. You'll see telephone poles, you'll see sewers, old concrete sewers kind of thing going on. So you're going to find modern stuff. There's property markers sometimes in the woods. Sometimes you'll see legal descriptions of it in paperwork, what it was, like a wooden post or whatever. I did find some wooden posts back there. A couple of them were still buried in the ground, even though they were tilting. It does not look to be junk thrown there. It could very well have come from later, later times when the property was bought. Again, can't be sure. It's got barbed wire, some makeshift stuff. Sometimes you have to retaunt the wire. They came up with a little makeshift thing so you can turn it and tighten it up. It's kind of funny looking. Again, if you want to explore there, I don't know how much in the way that is even private property, but it is that creek area, and that runs along the property line of the Everdons. Today it's just filled with just beer bottles, just a whole bunch of junk, just a whole lot of junk. But walking back there, you can see the back end of the radar system, which is Midway's primary, O'Hare's backup radar. Do not jump the fence, obviously. If you notice the signs, do not trespass. Again, not much to see. Do not bother those people in the home that are across that gravel lot on 147th. It's I don't know if it definitely, like if it's their property as far as where their home used to be. Maybe they were using the property closer to Bachelors Cemetery, because that would have been better for farming who knows what was going on. You could probably use things like the old 1930s aerial shots to get a basic idea, but it's not something you want to go off of to make a final determination. At bachelorsgrove.com, in the property records section, you can find some of this kind of stuff. Some have been updated, some have not, with some of these records that I've got, like the land sale records. I was able to get those scanned in from that one particular book from the library. If you order this stuff from the state of Illinois, it has a really bad photocopying quality to it, so these were pretty badass. Printed on the old printer that had the perforated marks on the side. Cool stuff. Anyway, have fun, enjoy your journey. If you ever think about going over there on the 151st side, not much to see. Again, I don't know how much is private property or not, but it doesn't seem like they really care along the creek line, and there are some fences and stuff like that to keep you in bounds. Until next time. Actually, before I really go, if you go to the property section of bachelorsgrove.com, property records section, you'll see Margaret Schmidt. Just dig into the Schmidt records. You'll see something called an abstract of title. It's about 63 pages long. So when they sold the property that surrounds Bachelor Grove Cemetery, before the Forest Preserves got it, they wanted to find out more about the legal description and ownership of, generally, of everything that happened around the cemetery, to find out who really owned the cemetery, these kind of things back in that day. You'll find little tidbits about how certain things got chopped up and sold, even if it was temporarily used and then resold again later, such as the Bohm family who dug out the quarry that became the pond. Maybe somebody did some wrongdoings. They were doing things with their cattle, and then they got sued in the courts, and maybe they owed 17 grand for something. Once you get used to reading these legal descriptions of these maps, and even if not, you can just skim through it. It's still very fun to read what was going on in very close proximity to the cemetery. That's why they had this abstract title. It's just like, anyway, I don't want to get into it. I just want to leave these final remarks. Find that abstract title, and you go down this like rabbit hole of history, legal history anyway, of things that happened here.